Greetings, I'm Anesu Kamuzonde. I'm from Landmark Design Solutions, and I'd just like to welcome you to the 6th Annual Black Sustainability Virtual Summit 2021. So today I'm going to be talking about edible gardens in Black Holistic Health. Let's get started. So, edible gardens for Black Holistic Health. The first thing that I'd like to talk to you about today is, what are edible gardens? Well, edible gardens are outdoor spaces or gardens whereby you can grow fruits, vegetables, anything that's edible that you can consume. So the next thing is, what is holistic health? So holistic health, this is basically health or healing, which is related to the whole of a person, which relates to mind, body, and spirit. There are 5 categories in terms of holistic health. All right, so there's physical health, emotional health, social health, spiritual health, and then the last one, which is mental health. We're going to be looking at how each of these categories relate to edible gardens. All right, so let's get started with the first one, shall we? So when we're now talking about physical health, we're now talking about what you intake into your body. So which means that if you're intaking a lot of processed food, it's really bad for you, because in the long run you don't have enough nutrients to support like your immune system. But whereas now if you have edible gardens, these can actually help, because most edible gardens have plants that are very nutrient based. So by consuming these types of, let's say, vegetables and fruits that you get from your edible garden, it increases your immune system and it basically makes your physical health a lot better. All right, so the second thing that we're going to be talking about is emotional health. So one of the ways that you can support your emotional health is to seek therapy when needed, or you can just journal down your thoughts. But here's the thing now when it comes to having edible gardens. Edible gardens help because it's a very therapeutic process. Because imagine that whole process that you experience for an edible garden, from point A, from when you start, when you're planning out your edible garden, when you're trying to figure out what crops to put, all that stuff. And then from the middle part now, which is when you start to, to prep the soil and plant your seeds and water your seeds and all that stuff, to the part where you start to now harvest your crops. And then from when you harvest your crops, you now start to cook them, and then you consume them. So that process from point A to point B is very therapeutic because you feel like you accomplished something. So for me, it's very good in terms of using edible gardens to increase your emotional health. All right, so let's now move on to social health. Social health for me is quite interesting because for me, what happens with social health is that as human beings, we need to communicate with each other. There's just a need that we have inside of us to communicate, or to want to communicate with the next person, even though we don't know how to do it, but we just feel like we want to do it. And when we do it, it feels good, to communicate with other people. So in terms of edible gardens now, how they help to increase the social health factor is whereby, imagine you create an edible garden in a community. So in this community, everyone now comes together, everyone now bands together in terms of to create the edible garden. So that actually creates this strong social element within the community. So that means every time you have a meeting about, let's say, the edible garden, you get to communicate with other people, you get to give your ideas, and you also get to accept other people's ideas as well. So by continuously doing that, it increases your social health. So when it comes to spiritual health, for me, it's all about how people feel a spiritual connection, let's say, to the environment around them, So let's say you wake up and you meditate. So as you're meditating, you're focusing on the surroundings, you're focusing on the wind, you're focusing on the sound, and you're calm and you're relaxed, So when it comes to edible gardens, what they offer now is this thing whereby they make you feel connected to the earth. Because remember what we talked about earlier on about, like, let's say you going about the process of you creating your edible garden. So imagine you're midway through creating your edible garden, and then you get to the point whereby now you have to like touch the soil. You have to actually feel the soil or just prepare the soil. So by doing that, it's like you're getting in touch with nature itself. And by touching that soil, those textures, it feels very relaxing, you know? And also, the other thing is that imagine now your edible garden is fully grown. You have your vegetables, you have your fruits, everything is all there. You wake up in the morning and then you just open the door, then you just see that scenery. That's very relaxing. I mean, you feel like you've accomplished a lot, you know, and that makes you feel a bond between, let's say, the earth and yourself. Okay, so when it comes down to mental health is actually kind of overlaps between emotional health and physical health. So what happens is that with edible gardens now, when you're now intaking, let's say, nutrient-rich foods, that actually helps you to, to increase the strength of your mental health, you know. And also when you're going outside to do activities like bending down and picking up your harvest, or even just, you know, watering your plants, that's also a form of increasing the strength of your mental health in a way, you know. Okay, now it's getting really exciting, because now we're going to be talking about how you can start your own edible garden. So the first thing that you have to consider is that you have to think about the types of plants that you want to grow in your edible garden. So, for example, let's say you want to start by listing down maybe 2 to 3 plants, not too many. So, for me, I would personally say that maybe you start by choosing kale, carrots, and also green peas, because these vegetables are very rich in nutrients. So yeah, that's one thing you have to consider. All right, so the second thing that you have to consider is that you have to plan out where you want your edible garden to be. So when I say plan out, I mean that you have to figure out like which location, like do you want your edible garden to be? Do you want it to be on the balcony? Do you want it to be on the corner of your yard? But bear in mind, when you want to now choose the place where you want to locate your edible garden, just make sure that that place there's full sun. Because when there's full sun, that means your crops or your plants can grow properly. All right. The third thing that you have to consider is to have a good water source. Because when you now have a good water source, that means you can actually water your plants properly. But bear in mind, don't overwater your plants. So you have to do a little bit of research. So that now comes down to the types of plants that you've chosen. Okay, so the fourth thing that you need to start your edible garden is that you need containers. These containers are where you're going to put your plants. So when it comes down to containers, you don't have to go all fancy and build like a planter box or something. No, you can just take regular containers, like drinking containers, and then you can just put your planting in there, you know. But just make sure that you wash inside of these containers, like you cut in the middle and then you wash inside of them, and then you start to now put your plants in there. So for me it's a very good method, because you know, one of the good things about putting your plants in containers is that you can actually move them easily, and that's great. That's actually really, really good. All right, so the fifth thing that you need is that you need good soil. So which means that you have to go to your local nursery and look for soil that has got good nutrients. Okay, so when you now have a soil that has good nutrients, that means your plants will grow properly in your edible garden. So the sixth and most important thing, have fun with it. You know, have fun with it. Because if you have fun with it, trust me, you're going to enjoy the process from start to finish, you know. And one of the things that you can do to actually have fun with it, you know, you remember we were talking about containers? And so you take those containers and maybe you start painting on them, you know, a couple of designs and stuff. Trust me, it's fun and also it's therapeutic, you know. So yeah, have fun with it. Okay, so Those are the 6 things that you need to start your edible garden. See? So in conclusion, implementing edible gardens creates a strong impact in Black holistic health, resulting in happier and healthier lives. Alright, that's it for me. Thank you for watching and take care.